Hi, everybody. I'm Ross Hill. I am Director of Intelligence with At Risk International's Global Risk Intelligence team, and welcome to the latest edition of our Global Risk Intelligence Insights. I'm here with Cooper McGill, and we are going to run you through the things that we think are important or interesting this week. Cooper, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Ross. So first up this week, we're going to be discussing protests occurring as a result of the Supreme Court leak. So as many of you likely have seen the news at this point already, but on May 2nd, Politico obtained a leaked draft of a majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito that would strike down Roe v. Wade, the 1973 Supreme Court decision that ruled that the Constitution protects a pregnant woman's right to abortion without excessive government restriction. Immediately following this news, protesters and demonstrators gathered outside of the Supreme Court that night, it was in the evening, and remained in the area that night, remained in the area in the morning. And have largely continued to show up, at least in small groups, since the release of this report. The veracity of the report was confirmed. However, it was reiterated that it was just a draft, and that this is not considered a final ruling in any way. And because of that, it's likely that not just in this short-term outlook here, but moving forward, we're going to continue to see a lot of public demonstrations in an attempt to both influence public opinion, as well as potentially trying to influence the final decision of the court. So over the weekend, protests took place in a number of cities in the United States. Additionally, the homes of both Justice Kavanaugh and Chief Justice Roberts were specifically targeted by protest groups in the Virginia, D.C. area. And then coming up on May 14th, there are protests planned across the country. As you can see on the map here, the locations of upcoming events. Those are likely to draw pretty significant crowds, I would imagine. However, at this point, there's no indication that these protests will turn violent. There's obviously, though, a few factors that could increase the risk of, violence or, acts of vandalism, that type of thing. One being either planned or unplanned attendance at these events by rival groups of activists conducting counter demonstrations. Additionally, the presence of large numbers of Black Bloc style protesters at these events that could serve to increase risk a bit. And then obviously any specific warnings from authorities in the protest areas relative to any increased risks of violence at the event. And as I said, given that the decision is not final, and it's likely that we won't be getting a final ruling until probably late June. Additional planned and spontaneous events, particularly spontaneous events in the Washington D.C. area, are very, very likely moving forward beyond just this week and the May 14th event. So we'll continue to watch that. Moving on to another, important update this week. There was a pretty large intellectual property theft campaign that was uncovered by cybersecurity researchers. And it was tied, they believe, the most likely threat actor in this case is a Chinese-backed cyber espionage group. Multiple sectors across multiple regions have been affected, a number of multinational organizations. The primary purpose, of course, of this campaign was to steal intellectual property and proprietary information, diagrams, formulas, documents, various blueprints, that type of thing. However, it's important to note that the information that they have their hands on now through this campaign, such as account credentials, passwords, employee emails, that sort of thing, could be used for future cyber attacks as well. So there can be a bit of a reconnaissance element to this type of campaign. This type of attack generally doesn't conjure up perhaps the same sort of urgency that maybe a ransomware style attack, for example, would, as that obviously has a much more immediate effect. However, the long-term economic and potential national security consequences are very clear. This is a growing issue around the world, intellectual property theft, particularly as it pertains to China and Chinese-backed threat actors and cyber espionage groups. We'll continue to watch this. It's worrisome at this point that it appears the organizations being targeted were not aware that they were being targeted, and it appears this campaign has not been fully shut down either. So there's definitely still more to develop here that we will watch moving forward. And now I will pass it over to Ross, who will provide an update on Ukraine.
Thanks, Cooper. So in Ukraine, fighting remains concentrated in the east and the south, and we have Mariupol now basically under control of Russian forces, except for the large steel plant where the Azov battalion is still holding out, although there were some humanitarian operations there that managed to evacuate the civilians that were trapped in that location. Ukraine has managed to launch counteroffensives in Kharkiv, although it said it wouldn't launch full counteroffensive until at least mid-June. Ukraine's defense minister saying they're awaiting the delivery of more Western weapons, and that Russia is unlikely to make any significant progress before then. A lot of people were expecting some kind of significant announcement today by Vladimir Putin in his Victory Day speech, but he just carried on with the narratives that the West was responsible for the war in Ukraine because it threatened Russia's borders and security, and carried on calling the war a special military operation. So no real change in Russian narrative, and we can't draw anything significant from what Putin said today. However, a couple of days earlier, Alexander Lukashenko, president of Belarus and a close ally of Putin, said that the Russian invasion had dragged on and called for an end to the war, using the term war as something that Russia has avoided up until then. Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, said that any peace deal with Russia would require Russian forces to pull back to their pre-invasion positions. He also said the country needed the return of more than 5 million refugees, membership of the European Union, and accountability from Russian military leaders, and that's in regard to the alleged war crimes that Ukraine is reporting. So we don't see any significant progress towards any kind of peace at the moment. G7 countries agreed to phase out or ban Russian oil. The US has also unveiled some new sanctions targeting 3 Russian media outlets and also a Russian bank. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and also Jill Biden, America's First Lady, have made visits to Ukraine in the show of ongoing support for the country. And the EU is proposing an oil embargo, but it can't agree on those conditions yet. Hungary, Cyprus, Slovakia, all against it at the moment, given their reliance on Russian oil. The EU needs all 27 members to agree to make it work. Doesn't look like that's going to happen imminently, but they're talking about new plans, maybe talking about phasing out Russian oil by something like 2024 to give the countries that are most reliant time to seek alternative supplies. But we'll just have to see how that goes. However, the EU did pledge more military aid to Moldova, along with support for its EU membership application, and that's because of concerns of Russia targeting the country. But overall, we are carrying on with our prolonged conflict scenario. That's it for updates from us this week. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it useful. Thanks. Bye.